a second to be seated. Hello. All right. Start with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, members of the committee. My name is Jaime Puente, and I am the Director of Economic Opportunity for Every Texan, and we are opposed to SB 1. One of the primary reasons we are opposed to SB 1 is because public education is a cornerstone of our democracy, and vouchers in any form undermine that democracy by instituting division into our state public schools and our state public school system. One of the things that we've heard today is, and I think Senator Springer mentioned it earlier, the cost to small rural districts. And, if you remember, some of you who've been here before on this committee talking about vouchers, in 2017, we had much of the same conversation. And at that time, the Center for Public Policy Priorities did our own models. We did some models this time around, and just for Throckmorton Collegiate ISD and Throckmorton County Center, 1%, if 1% usage of a universal voucher, that's 2 students, that would cost your district $16,000. For 3% at 5 students, that would create a loss to your district of $41,783. At 5% usage, which is 8 students, that would cost $66,854 to Throckmorton ISD. And so statewide, that's more than $2.5 billion taken from our public school system if 5% of students use this voucher. So when we think about that, when we think about the $500 million that is supposedly being appropriated for this bill, if you look at Section 2, the voucher fund that's being created to fund these ESAs, the very first item in how that fund is funded is through general revenue transfer. We have seen over the last 3 years how the governor has used his power to transfer money to spend as much as he likes to spend.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair.
Senator Springer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to clarify one of my quotes in there. When I did talk about Throckmorton, I did also talk about a net decrease and a fixed cost versus variable cost school. So, I understand your calculation when you look at the whole, if 60,000 left, what the number would be. But, my specific issue that I was talking about was fixed cost variable versus variable cost schools. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator West, you had a question?
Yes, for the author of the bill.
Senator Creighton?
Yes. Okay, Section 2 of the bill, you said the first line.
Yeah, it's. I think it's. I forget exactly. Let me pull it up real quick.
It's on page 2.
It's on page 2. I think it's line 9.
Okay, under B1.
Yes, sir. Okay. Exactly. B1.
Fund.
General revenue transferred to the fund.
Okay, general revenue transferred to the fund.
And then at the bottom it says any other money available for a purpose of the program, right? So I think we've seen, how the governor at his own discretion can transfer billions of dollars to other accounts in the state budget if he would like to. So I think and I may be wrong, and I'm happy to come and speak to your office, sir, but my reading is that general revenue can be transferred to this fund at any time.
And so
that doesn't say legislative appropriated.
Okay. Let's just see what he has to say.
And so I'll ask the author, what is the author's intent with this language right here? Or is that something we need to talk about?
Well, you and I discussed that previously on checking into that authority. It's certainly not the intention for the author or the appropriators to have anything other than the policy that's passed and the appropriation that's dedicated to that policy. So outside of that, the executive branch's authority in any way, shape, or form with regard to any line item in the budget is not within the scope of this bill.
Okay.
You just have to be held politically accountable, I guess, if you're implying that would be some sort of end run that would be done around the legislative appropriations effort. I mean, like we talked about on the border issue when those transfers were happening within DPS, that was a concept that was originated out of the executive branch, but then the executive waited on the legislature
The second time around.
The second time around to make that effort and make that change through an actual bill, and we did. But
and hopefully
it's not tied to ESAs. That authority is not tied to ESAs in any way.
So I'm hoping, Mr. Chairman, that we can make certain that the language is clear in terms of what the author's intent is as it relates to transfers made by the executive branch of government that's not in the appropriations bill.
Well, of course, and it'll be clear through the appropriators' actions as well. Otherwise, the amount would be higher than it is.
Right. That's exactly, and that's what you're talking about.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and I think one thing I would say to that is we have examples of the governor unilaterally appropriating money without the legislator's approval. There was to the tune of about $2.5 billion in 2021 and 2022. And, even if that were not the case, we have also seen elsewhere in state government where the legislature, and I can think specifically of how we fund Medicare. We specifically underestimate how much we are going to spend in the next 2 years, and then we come back with a supplemental bill and we cover the overages. What is to prevent us from, because in the bill language, there's no cap on how many students or how many people are allowed to participate. There's no cap on that. There is a cap according to how much money is appropriated to spend on the program. Well, we can always come back with a supplemental budget and fix the overages, right? We do that with the Health and Human Services Commission every session.
Mr. Manager.
Senator Menendez?
So if I hear you correctly, and the intention of the legislation, even though I'm very much opposed, is to spend no more than $500 million, we should divide that by the 8,000, which gets you 62,500 students, and say that it should not.
Well, you have to subtract the 3 to 8% that is going to go to the middleman, which is the CEAO. They get a cut of that.
Okay,
so it comes out to be about 52,000.
We'll take that, and we get the 52,000, and make sure that it's no more than 52,000 in order to cap the cost at $500 million.
I think that would be a way that you could do that. To limit, if you really want to limit it at that $500 million, you would want to cap the number of students and not the appropriation, because the way I read the bill is that through a executive transfer, right, which would have to be done with the LBB and the chair of the Senate Finance and House Appropriations, right? That could be done, but also, right, the supplemental come back in the next year and backfill what the overages were. And so the only way to prevent that from happening, in my estimation, would be to limit the number of participants specifically.
You're asking for increased transparency in the spending of this program, is what you're asking for.
I'm asking that we not even talk about the program at all, but if you are going to consider this program and you are talking about not blowing, because I think one of the things we've seen in Arizona, which comes up a lot, in Arizona last year, they appropriated about $450 million. The current Republican Arizona Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Horn, has himself estimated that the actual cost is going to be closer to $900 million, if not $1 billion, over this next year.
And Arizona has about 1/5 the number of students we do.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's scary. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Menendez. But this bill has been carefully crafted and not expected to have such a high increase that you're comparing us to Arizona, I think. And I just comments. And the governor is very, he's conservative for what he has to use, and it's usually for emergencies. So I don't anticipate the governor, and I think that may be a scare tactic. I could be wrong, may truly be. Obviously, it is an opinion. But for to say that the governor's going to go out there and put another $500 million or a lot of dollars out there unexpectedly, I think that is really stretching it, because I don't see that happening at all, or indications that we really are going to do that. Thank you very much. Ma'am?